Welcome to the Hardcat Core 99 series. In this episode, we're going to show you how to create a new role and apply it to a user. To access roles within Hardcat, we first of all have to go to the File menu, then Administration, Roles. Within here, we can either view an existing role by viewing the role report. The role report will show you the default security options associated with that role. We can edit an existing role, create a new role, copy an existing role, or delete a role, although we can't delete a role if it's assigned to any users. Today, we'll create a new role. The first thing when creating a role is we have to apply a description. So what is the purpose of this role? Is it a manager's role, supervisors, web user, CAT scan only, or a read-only reporting role? Today, we'll create a read-only reporting role. Now we have a description, we have to go through the different areas and apply the options to the role within the rules, fixed reports, custom reports, import export, bulk updates, and charts. These different areas allow you to specify what are these different items that a user can see and use, whereas our role security will apply the security options to the specified login that's associated to this role. So if this is a reporting role, we need to go through and add in the reports that we want this user to see. So for each different area that you're licensed for in the drop-down area, you'll need to go through and specify on the left-hand side, selecting the report, then clicking the right arrow button to include report in that role. So you'll have to do this for each of the different areas that you want the person to see the reports for. Within the assets area, you may want to see the movement reports. You may also want to see the attachment reports. If they need to see financial reports such as additional costs, you could add those in as well. And we have to do the same thing for the different areas within the system to see what reports we want to provide to that user. We'll do the same thing with custom reports. Again, for the different areas within the system, we'll have to go through and apply the reports that we want this user to see. And again, with import exports, what import export definitions this user is allowed to see and use. Same with bulk updates, but as this is a read-only account, we don't need to apply any bulk update definitions, although we can apply charts. With the chart option, if we enable our show charts on startup, all charts that are part of the role will appear in the background for the user. So let's add in a couple of charts. Supplier, cost center, location, and maybe assets by condition from the asset area. But we can apply charts from all the different areas from Hardcat, and they'll then be included again in our dashboard. So now that we've added in our areas of our role, we need to look at our role security options. The first thing we have to decide upon is when we apply this role to a user account, do we want to be able to set the security at a user level or all security to be derived from the role? If you'd want the security to be derived from the role, do not tick on allow logins to override role options. If that is unticked, then the role security dictates what the levels of access that the user will have within the system. So today we'll leave that unticked. To access role security, this will then bring up the different security options that we can set that will be inherited by the Hardcat user account. Starting from the top right, we have our password policies. Do we want, for any user associated to this account, do we want to specify the password policies to enforce? Do we want their password to expire? Are they active by default or are they disabled? Are they a multiple user? If they are a multiple user, that account can be in the system multiple times. If it is unticked, the account can only be logged into Hardcat once. If another user tries to log in with that same account, the prior user will be deactivated from the system. The next area of our tick boxes comes to our licensing. How do we want this user to access the system? If it's an internal user, they can access the Hardcat client. If they're an external user, they can come in via the Hardcat web. If they're a CAT scan user, means that they can log on to CAT scan. If they're a MyCat user, they can log in using the MyCat smartphone application. So this user is a read-only and internal, so we'll give them internal access only. When they log into Hardcat, what area do we want them to start in? Main menu will be the Hardcat display with the chart shown with our general display charts on startup enabled. Alternatively, if they are looking at assets, we could choose list of assets, or if they are looking at different areas, potential work orders, depreciation, purchasing, all the issue or return areas. We can specify a default workgroup. So the workgroup, which we looked in our prior video, allows us to restrict what assets this user will be able to have access to. If we only want them access to computers in Victoria, we can select the Computer in Victoria workgroup. Next, we have our Options button. Within our Options area, it has a more granular area for the rights for the different modules. First of all is our Security area. Our security is broken into two functions. We have against our different areas for assets, problems, maintenance, purchasing, and stock. We can specify if they have access to create, read, update, and delete records within that module. As this is a read-only account, we'll set them to be read-only for our particular areas. And finally, stock. Next, we have the General tab. This area here is General System Items. We can go through and specify, can this user modify preset questions to do with the core module attributes around asset types, cost centers, location, people, suppliers, and regions. The generate text reports when sending function. If that is enabled, if the user uses the send function for the reports or when sending an email, the report will be sent as a .txt file rather than a PDF. The use type to in search in milliseconds, our bottom option down here, is enabled when you use the contain search in our grids. This many milliseconds after the last character press, the system will automatically apply the search. If you prefer to type it in, then press the enter key or apply, ensure that is unticked. On the right hand side, we have the ability to hide our folder structures for our entities for asset types, locations, cost centers, and people. If they are ticked on, when you go to those entities, the entities within their structure will be presented as a list and no folder structures will be presented. The display long descriptions in audit trail. This will, when looking at a history record, if it is unticked, will only show you the codes for the from value and the to value. If it is displayed, it will show you the description of the associated code rather than just the code. Can edit other user reports? Would leave that unticked. So therefore, if a user has the ability to create their own reports, that means they can't edit any reports which have been authored by other users. The use IE for online help is when you press the help button from Hardcat, will that open up in Internet Explorer or your default browser? If that's unticked, it'll open up your default browser. And finally, have our displays charts on startup tick box. With that ticked on, that will enable us to have a Hardcat dashboard displayed with the charts as selected from our charts option when we were creating our role. For the different areas, we can go through and specify our different options as well for depreciation, help desk, maintenance, purchasing, issue return. For our issue return functions, if the user was not a read-only account, we would specify their different options here. And the Hardcat web. If they're a Hardcat web user, what different pages and modules do we allow them to access? For our read-only account, we've specified everything that we need to and can press OK. That's our options area. The next area we need to look at is the levels of access in the system. We did have the security tab in options, but other areas we can also go through and specify levels of rights as well. So within our asset core module areas, for our assets, locations, suppliers, cost centers, people, products, and asset types, we're going to specify from this drop down R. There are 4 options here: N for no access, read for read only, RA for read amend, or RAD for read amend and delete. If you have RAD selected for assets, but R selected only in our security area here, Hardcat will take whatever the lowest of the 2 levels of security is. So in this instance, you'll still only have read-only access to assets. You will not be able to create an asset, you'll not be able to edit an asset, and you will not be able to delete an asset, irrespective if you have RAD selected against assets. For good practice, it's probably best to keep them aligned. So R, and R. And finally, have access to our modules and our reporting structures. So does this user require access to the barcoding module? No. Does he require access to the depreciation module? For read only, yes. Does he or she require access to the help desk? Read only, yes. Purchasing, read only. Maintenance, read only. And stock, read only. So that's access to the modules. Now it's access to the areas for reporting and other administration functions. As it's a read-only person, they do not need access to administration or the users function. but they will need access to read on the financials, which is based on the finance tab of an asset, which includes the purchase price and purchase date, warranty end of life, and additional cost information. Does this user have access to exports? If we want them to be a read-only user, yes, we want them to be able to export, but no access to import into the system. The reports functionality, we would like them to have read-only access to the reports. By having that, then enables them to view the reports that we've made available via the role specification. We can now press OK to save our security options and press OK to save our role. What we'll do now is close out of our list of roles and update the role security on a user and then log in as that user to see how that is affected. To do that, we'll go to File, Administration, Security. We'll update the Melbourne user to be the role report read only. We go OK. And when we select the role, it's going to prompt us to say, do we want to reset the security? And we'll go yes. As we can see here, the ability to change the rights for the user are locked out as it is now dictated and set at the role level. Press OK to save. We'll log in now with our new updated Melbourne account. As we can see now with the Melbourne account, we have a dashboard presented with the charts that we selected based on our role. If we go to our list of assets, via our icon or list assets, and we'll check out our lift fixed reports. As we can see, the only options are available in our drop down here are the ones that we selected within our role. Our custom reports, they're done available there. And we have no access to bulk updates or charts as we didn't provide any administration rights to the user. As we can see now, the user has had the new rights associated based on the role presented.